Greetings, nerds. This is SNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Very well, Sarah. How you doing this Monday evening?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, it's let's see, we made it through another weekend of DC FanDome, more or less.
More or less.
Yeah,
More or less.
yeah. I did watch it, but it was a lot harder this time around, given that the way it was structured. I guess the first weekend was one of those things where it was, you
Actually
had
programmed.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was programmed. I guess they had the bombshells and stuff, and there were things this weekend too. But it kind of snuck up on me, to be honest.
Well, no, what I mean, I from what I saw, and I didn't really spend a whole lot of time on it. I skipped a lot of videos. I started them, and then I did me, and I said, "Oh, I don't need to hear the answer to that because I've heard it 5,000 times."
Right.
I so I kind of tuned in and tuned out of it, but that's why this is what separates this weekend's fandom event from the previous fandom event is that there was more flexibility in what you were able to watch.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot more content, it appeared to be,
Oh yeah.
but you also got to way more control over the actual controller, and you were able to skip things and check out little things when the original fandom event, it was just one continuous feed,
Yeah.
and there was, so you almost, for me and you, we surprised ourselves because we were like, man, I thought I was just going to tune in here and here, and but for majority it was just always on in the background, which you couldn't do in this structure. And that's my problem with it, is that it felt too much
Yeah.
like, hey, we're not going to make any, it felt really just, I don't know, it was like, we're going to set up a special YouTube channel for you now, go through and find your favorite things to talk about. It was not anywhere on par with the previous fandom event.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. I mean, obvious from the obvious things as far as no big bombshells, and really this weekend really took the pre-recorded panels, because clearly these things were done back in August,
Yeah.
as far as
Yeah.
and so things like the flash panel, for example, it was an extended panel from the first weekend, because the first weekend it was really compressed. I think it was only maybe what 15, less than 20 minutes, if I recall. So
Right, but it was also, if you shot the whole thing, why would you compress it and then release an extended one, which only had like 10, 15 minutes maybe of extra stuff, but
yeah,
really not too much? I mean,
yeah,
I personally just skipped a whole bunch of the flash panel because I felt as if I've already seen it.
yeah. I did. I mean, it was I after a while I realized that, okay, I've watched most of this. There was really not excuse me, not too much more new that was in that thing. To your point about how they carve things up, a lot of the Q&A with those extended panels, they had put over on the, I think it was the either the Uverse. So I just started watching those because
Hmm.
I felt like if you wanted to get any type of information, I felt those were the places where you could get it. Like, for example, the Flash movie panel, which people have somehow turned like basically a 3.5 minute Q&A with the Machetes into like, oh, here's big news from the weekend, and I was like, not really. The first weekend they said pretty much the same thing,
Right.
as far as that they're going to introduce the multiverse concept, and I think the only maybe different thing was there'll be a lot more DC characters possibly in this film, but uh, the as far as resetting things and putting things and not forgetting the things that were already there before. I mean, they pretty much said that same kind of stuff in the first panel. So I felt like a lot of the things that where people were trying to make news for some of these things, like the Flash, for example, were just kind of repetitive from the first weekend, and they were just trying to milk it a little bit more. I did find, yeah.
I was just going to chime in there, though, to talk about the Flash panel, the extended edition. Man, they should have, you know what they should have done, Will? On these extended panels, they should have said the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not go there? You had a whole panel dedicated to him last time. But there were a few minor things that I did not hear as clearly the first time around.
Yeah.
We maybe saw a bit of it because they did release the trailer the first time around, but this time there was acknowledgement Cecile's powers are evolving this season.
True.
So is the character Cecile. You know, I had my problems with her, but for whatever reason, she's just sticking to this show.
Yeah.
Never leave. Iris may resent Barry for how long she was stuck in the Mirrorverse, and there may be residual effects. Very interesting. I love that note. Very intrigued by that.
Yeah.
Very non-intrigued by New Wells won't see it coming.
Yeah. Well, I guess now they're going to stick with what's the latest Nash Wells, but
no.
Yeah, but I guess they'll just stick with Nash as, I guess, the host, and then we'll see all these various multiverse other Wells manifest themselves throughout the season. So, okay.
Oh man. Who is Barry Allen without his powers? You know, I feel as if they tried doing that a little bit last season. Didn't really hit that head on the hammer. But I'm gonna try to be optimistic about the season. So maybe Godspeed reveal will likely happen.
Yes.
But more importantly, why the heck is he mad at the Flash? Well, Barry Allen does some stupid stuff. So I never blame a character for being mad at the Flash.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing about God, yeah, that's definitely true, and I will be interested to see how Eric Wallace, the showrunner, because he did talk about this in the this panel. They really expanded on how they're trying to bring new fans into the show, because Godspeed is a character that has been introduced in the latest version of the DC Rebirth in the last 5 years or so, and in the comic book, August Hart was a coworker with Barry, and they go into this whole thing about Speed Force storms and stuff, and how he gets into Godspeed gets speedster powers, as well as other people in Central City during the early runs of Josh Williamson's run as writer on the series, comic book series. So so I don't know how. Given that they have created, they've merged all these multiverses, maybe in another, given that everybody's merged now, I'm seeing possibly where what was played out in the comic book will be introduced into the TV show, except obviously it's just from another Earth where Godspeed and whatever original Earth he came from, and Barry will have it out, because obviously they've already done the Eobard Thawne from the future element.
God, they haven't. They've never talked about Eobard Thawne from the future, from the past, from the present. Never.
Never.
No, it's just like they've never had a Harrison Wells on the show either.
Yeah, exactly.
They've never exhausted that character, Will. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess my point, well, given that they've never exhausted that character, they definitely don't want to exhaust it anymore with a similar backstory for Godspeed. So I'm thinking Godspeed's another, is someone from another Earth, and he had been, falling out with Barry, like what happened in the comics, and that's how they'll work it into the show.
Yeah, and last but not least, the gold boots are coming. The gold
Yes,
boots are coming.
they must be earned.
They must be earned. Speaking about earning things, Batwoman, they did have a full panel this time around. We saw Javisha here and there throughout the first big event, the first FanDome.
Yep.
But they had a full panel, and you know what? Didn't learn a lot. However, I gotta say, I love this show. I love this cast.
Yeah, yeah,
and and I did skip through a lot of the let's get to know Javisha. And I was more focused on wanting to hear. I liked how they split it up. They talked a lot about what everybody was proud of
hmm
and everything they did during the first season that they really just hit out of the ballpark. And then they mirrored that by bringing their new lead on and also trying to explain how will this work, because this is a big question
yeah.
that would have been prime news for us had 2020 never happened the way it has. But it's how do you take Kate Kane, remove her from the picture, insert Ryan, and make it work? And I felt very, what is a good word? Reassured
Yeah.
that the showrunner knows exactly how to play it so it makes sense, because there's going to be trust issues.
hmm
There's Alice is still in the picture,
Yep.
but Alice knows who Kate is. And so this new person she's going to have friction with because Kate's her sister.
Right.
And so we'll marry. And I love the tease about Mary and Alice
Got
because
it too. Yeah.
they have such a good. And Luke also said some, or not Luke, but the actor who plays Luke. He was so entertaining to watch
Yeah.
throughout the entire panel, his enthusiasm. And I felt confident by the cast and the creators that season 2 will at least be serviceable to
hmm
what season 1 was,
Yeah.
if not better.
I think it might be better,
Yeah.
to be honest. I think I th- I think that new energy will be. You're right. That panel, the energy and the it was very infectious. Even if it was a Zoom call with all those cast members, you could tell. Even though, they were meeting her virtually for the first time, and really talking in a group about the upcoming season. It I think I had heard rumblings that, you know, clearly we know that Ruby had a different idea about being a lead in a series and what all that entails, and setting the tone for the cast. Because we've heard other leads talk. Grant's talked about it. We've heard
Yep.
Steve and other talk about how they're the captains. And
Hmm.
people do take their cues from the head of the group, and I feel that this cast really really felt that surge of energy, that whatever bad vibes or you know that may have been around, because you had a lead who was kind of like uh, checked out. I don't know if checked out's the right word, but probably was didn't want to be there probably by the end of filming. I think they are happy to have that toxic element gone.
Yeah. I think so too. I think that because of the break, they've had time to digest, they've had time to reflect, and I think that's why it was, again, a smart move to lead off with what episodes did you love the most,
hmm
which was so funny because they chose some of my favorite ones as well.
Yeah, same
They
here.
clearly
Same here.
no, that's a good taste. I mean, even that shot, the infamous shot from season 1 with the transition from a flashback to present day, they called out as well. So they clearly watched their show, but
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be a breath of fresh air. And you really love a show. You can tell when they don't really tell you much about the season and you're already spiraling on little things, because one thing did catch me um off guard, and they describe Ryan as a hero rising because she has been a statistic of injustice from the moment of birth. The system was not built from her. So here's my theory, Will.
Okay.
So you're going to have Ryan take
Mhm.
up the mantle.
Mhm.
Alice is going to still be wreaking chaos.
Mhm.
Alice history from season 1, she was not born a statistic of injustice.
Right.
One bad thing happened to her, and that sent her down this path. And while Ryan, she should have been evolved into Alice, but
Mhm.
she didn't because of separate choices. So I think there's going to be this moral battle between the two, because Alice, she's white,
Mhm.
she's privileged,
Mhm.
and she still is a manic who murders people
Yeah.
and uses the city for her own games. And she feels like she has a right to, because of what happened to her. Ryan should have ended up like Alice.
Mhm.
She does not have all that privilege. And so but she's choosing to become a hero.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to play with that.
I really, really like that. And you went a place where I didn't think you were going to go, which I, which, uh, but I think that is really, a really, I hope Caroline Dries like listens to us, and if she's like, oh, these guys, these guys are onto something, because she
Where
hasn't
did you
introduced.
think I was going to go?
Well, I thought maybe with this, the injustice, and of course, all the topical things that are going on now with the crows, and being that they're the police,
Yeah.
uh, and um, how they basically have treated Alice and allowed her to continue to run rampant versus say someone who looks like Ryan.
Mm,
So I mean, there's that element of it as well. So and also how that new dynamic is going to happen now, because
uh-huh.
we go from Kate, who is white female
Yeah.
in the costume, to now we have a black vigilante and in the city, and will they play into that dynamic as well when we have a new black or Batwoman?
I almost am like, Carolyn, you have to. You
Yeah.
you have to touch on that, because here's what I don't want to see them do again. I don't want to see them do what they did with Kate in terms of using the cape,
Hmm.
the as a metaphor for coming out.
Hmm.
As like, well, here's somebody who's out and proud, but then suddenly her identity is kept a secret, and how she deals with that. It was played out beautifully in season 1, but they don't need to do that this time around. There's different things that they can toy with to to in terms of that whole secret identity,
Hmm.
and especially now with Ryan.
Yeah.
But I think you're right too, that they're going to do that, especially to set up the dynamic between Captain Kane and Ryan.
Yeah, yeah, and Javisha kind of touched on that too in the panel, as well as just making sure that she will get a new suit, and it will be representative of her.
Hmm.
So there's also, so again, that kind of plays into what I was thinking about as well.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking about new suits, Lois and Superman also had a panel, and they mentioned that Superman will be getting a new suit as well. He
Mhm.
will also be picking up two teenage boys,
Yep.
Alana Lang, a Smallville, and just a crap load of human problems.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by this show. I have to say, especially after hearing their panel this past weekend. I think seeing how two individuals, career individuals, because I think Lois is definitely going to be a working parent,
Hmm.
and and how they balance superhero life with her professional life, and also dealing with two teenage boys and all the dynamics that come with that. I think they have some good potential to tell us, give us a fresh take on this character, um, these two
Yeah,
characters.
it's growing on me. I was really mad when I first saw the headline. Hey, we're gonna get a Superman show. I'm like, what? What the heck?
Mhm.
We have Supergirl, or do we? Surprisingly, no Supergirl panel. Just
Nope,
saying.
nope. They were around though. They were sprinkled around.
Yeah, I saw a few here and there,
Yeah.
but I I really this panel is selling me that this is something you're going to want to check out
Hmm.
because it is different. It is a version of Clark we haven't seen before. He's with Lois. We're not going to play out that love story. We've already seen the ending 5,000 times.
Right.
They're going to have kids, and their kids are going to get wrapped up with Lana Lang's kids.
Yeah. 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 They go back to Smallville. They take it out of Metropolis, and yeah, and all. You're right. Yeah, having honest kids, and uh,
It's
I think
like,
it was very smart. I will say it was very smart of them to, like, with Crisis, because in Crisis, and they touched on this in the panel, we only see one child, and he was
mhm.
and it was an infant, and then when we get New Earth, they are now two teenage boys. So I think that was, again, another good creative move to uh, give us, as I said, a fresh take on this character.
Yeah, and that's something that Greg Berlanti really does well is able to set up these big moments in this vast landscape that they've created and then trigger them to develop these new storylines and mimic what happens in comic books,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
The series plot lines, they go all over the place, they mix, they match, people just love the characters and they want to see them again and again, but they don't want to see the same story again and again. They want to
Right.
see a different version with that character. So I'm right there with you, Will, that again another panel that was mainly fluff. They couldn't
Mhm.
really say too much. They couldn't reveal everything, but they did its mission on selling us that this is something to look forward to
Yeah.
in whenever in TBD because lately I still am iffy about this whole 2020.
Yeah.
I don't know anymore. I mean, I get it. Canada's all but locked their borders.
Yeah.
They've basically built a virtual bubble.
Yep.
Um, but I'm still weary, I guess. As full as once.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. The panel did do a good job of, uh, again, it really didn't tell us much. I mean, other than this, they did break the news that he would be getting a new suit. But the other thing I really liked about the panel was that Tyler, uh, he, he 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 gets it as far as, like, what it means to be Superman, and
Yeah.
and because I know, people have given him crap as far as, think, it's like Jobber Superman and blah blah blah. But I really think he understands what this character is, and then adding the dimension of being a father, to will, uh, uh, given that he, at least, Jonathan Kent was, um, his father figure, so that, so we'll see how Clark, lessons learned that he learned from Jonathan, as far as how to be a parent, and then also how what he learned from Jor-El, from
I was gonna say. Yeah.
from the crystals and stuff. So it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how they really, flesh out the legacies, of his birth father and his adoptive father, as Clark learns how to navigate uh, parenthood on top of being a superhero.
Yep. No, I'm starting to look forward to the show for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Minor note, because we do have so much more to get to tonight, but Doom Patrol was renewed for season 3.
Yay! It's gonna be exclusively on HBO Max. So
So
I
make sure
guess
you get a subscription.
get your subscription, and I need to check and see if they worked out something with Amazon Fire, because otherwise I'm gonna have to get Roku or something.
And then we have the Black Lightning panel. Of course, everyone is still talking about Henderson's death.
Yeah. So again, that was another panel. Really didn't have much specifics. I mean, the cast really admitted that they did not know what was going to happen in season 4, and they played a game with Robert Townsend, who's one of the executive producers and also prolific director and film producer as well. If you haven't seen Hollywood Shuffle, check it out. But at the Q&A, it was pretty cool. I couldn't help but think of you when James Remar said we'd like for Gamby to get a girlfriend.
I thought he had one with Lynn. I don't
Yeah, that's what I thought
know.
of you. I was just like, hey, Sarah's got the ship already set up for you, Gamby. But
there was a whole plot line. You just decided
yeah,
to throw it in the trash can. It would have been a very interesting, very melodrama.
yeah, but also other things like I mean, Crest was like, he did say on record that that he would like to have Henderson back. You can kind of tell that, I think the character was written off of the show because they didn't renew his contract. But there was that piece, and then and they talked, and then Chana talked about Jennifer. There's a question from a fan about the multiverse first Jennifers that we saw. And she was hopeful that they'll bring them back. And then I have to say, the actor who plays Tobias is just, I think he's just amazing. And I know in the showdown notes you had mentioned like Jason Isaacs and the panel that they were all on together with the villains, and that was another one of those panels. I mean, they were just. I guess that's my big problem with the whole weekend. It was just like, now I wish they had just made it 48 hours instead of 24, because there was just so much content. There was just no way to get to all of it, and so hopefully they'll will release a lot of these items on their YouTube channel moving forward, because there were a lot of good things, and even like there was Krypton behind the scenes from when they filmed the pilot. And just like I was like, damn, that show. Why did they have to cancel it? It was just like another dagger to the heart,
Right? Yeah, way to put salt in the wound.
Yeah,
we're gonna show this retrospective about a show that didn't even get a 3rd season.
Yeah.
That was
tough.
Was really good.
Yeah,
Bastards.
it was really tough to see that. Too bad. Maybe they should have put it on DC Universe to begin with.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Release the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
Man. Speaking about release dates, so news has broken out. Wonder Woman 84 moved to Christmas of this year. Maybe. Who knows? And then also, more importantly, last week, the big event was Dune trailer dropping. And so we all get up, we watch the Dune trailer, we say, oh, wow. And that's not really what I said.
No, I didn't either.
I'm actually probably one of the few people where I didn't like the trailer.
I was underwhelmed too.
Thank you. I kept thinking about a Rival trailer, and some of the shots just mirror, and I'm like, Denis Villeneuve, get new shots. I've seen this before.
Yeah.
I hated the music. I hated that music in the background. It did not fit.
So you're not a Pink Floyd fan, huh?
It just did not fit what the trailer was trying to get to. It didn't feel epic. It felt like a mismatch, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of YouTube um, chatter about the using dark side brain damage clips as far as the uh, music for this trailer, and yeah, and it's people. I think it's the new thing to do is to like use Pink Floyd songs in trailers, but at least with this one there was a historical basis for using it because Pink Floyd was supposed to
Yeah,
score
yeah.
film back in the 70s with Orson Welles and Salvador Dali and stuff. But you're right. To me, it felt like a mismatch, and it wasn't because that I love Dark Side of the Moon. It just felt like with what they were presenting here, it didn't flow for me. And I really, yeah, I was kind of meh about the trailer. So I mean, I don't know. I,
One thing I will say, Timothy Chalamet, great casting.
mhm.
He really, I didn't like, I didn't like most of the trailer because it felt like it was all shot in the same location.
Yeah,
It felt really weird.
yeah,
It didn't feel big. I liked most of the visuals, but I
yeah.
still, it, I don't know, there was something about it that just did not work for me. But Timothy Chalamet, I was captivated and fascinated by him
Mhm.
the whole time.
Yeah, I would
So,
agree with that. I would agree with that.
yeah, it's just so weird. But then again, I can completely wipe the record of this trailer because they announced the very next day, we're not going to get this movie until 2021, people.
Exactly, exactly. It's like they were so. I was like, do you think that's went through, or maybe they were like, well, let's just drop it, and just pray that we can get Wonder Woman out in October, and I don't know, but even before they dropped the trailer, there was already rumblings that Wonder Woman was going to get pushed back to possibly November or December. So they could have easily held the trailer for another day just to recut the release card.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Or the saga that was Tenet this summer.
yeah,
I just I have no idea what these studios are doing anymore. They're praying that COVID is done with sooner rather than later, pushing
yeah.
things that they shouldn't be pushing. And next year's going to be a mess
It
because yeah,
is.
we're going to get all these movies that we've been waiting for and more. And there's going to be way too much content. Movie
Mhm.
theaters are going to be flooded. So yeah, you might still hit that magical number, but
Yeah,
probably not the same as if it had been released in 2020,
yeah,
non-COVID 2020.
yeah. And true, that's true. And maybe third time's the charm for Dune. I mean, they've tried it. There was the David Lynch version, and then there was the one from Sci-Fi, I guess, around 2000.
Hmm.
So maybe, and apparently, Genevieve was only doing half of the book, and so I think Dune is one of those things like the concept of it because of it is it's greater than the actual production. It just may be one of those films, or maybe one of those stories that it's just better left to allow the reader to create the world in their heads when they're reading the book instead of trying to adapt it to film because it's just the scope and scale of it is just very hard to make to translate to this medium. Maybe.
You could have said that a decade ago.
Yeah.
But in this year, and when we and maybe if you're saying movies, then sure, but make a TV show. I mean, when has a fantasy, far-reaching, big-scale TV show ever worked? I don't know. Maybe Game of Thrones.
Maybe. Yeah. Game of
Maybe.
Thrones. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe.
Did all
Yeah.
right. Did
Yeah.
all
And I
right.
guess it did all right. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. And I guess Tolkien with Peter Jackson and Lord of the Rings. I mean, he did
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they didn't use any special effects or anything
not at all.
advanced technology. I just and there's that Amazon show we saw a trailer for so long ago that I can't think of the name, but it's based off of a series of books.
Oh, the Good Omens.
Y- The what?
the Good Omens or
It's like a far-reaching. This is gonna bother me. I can picture images from the trailer, but it's just on the tip of my tongue. Um, but that's another one that's based on a long, expansive fantasy sci-fi type material. So I just fire whoever edited the trailer and get a new person and make sure they edit the movie because I don't think that's what the movie's going to be. But I was not impressed by that trailer, and we've been on this point for way too long.
yeah, let's move on. Let's move on. Yeah.
Let's move on. All right. So on that note, let's talk some boys.
Yeah, yeah. For a lot of folks are waiting. We got through the undercard now to the main event. So
I don't know if you should call this the main event, considering this is basically the Doom Patrol orgy episode all over again. Everybody has sex in this episode. I swear to God. It's like everybody but Frenchie. Frenchie just wanted a kiss. Couldn't get a kiss. Everybody else getting it on. Even Homelander did some weird stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but but even Frenchie had sex because.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So basically, Mother's Milk and the Deep were like the only two that didn't get any.
Oh, so thank you for bringing up the Deep. We talk about this all the time. Sometimes shows they become repetitive because they use the same narrative formulas and structures, but every now and then they try to insert a new structure in. So the episode basically almost begins and ends with these interviews of women. When did you catch on that it was the Deep behind that?
Honestly, I didn't.
I did. Halfway through like the second or third one, I forget how many there were in total, but I knew at least halfway through because of the way they said something about what it's like to be in love, and I just thought to myself, I bet it's the Deep interviewing potential girlfriend.
No, I did. You know, whenever they showed it was him. I was like, huh. Because I was it was when I was watching these interviews, I was like, this seems kind of, yeah, like you said, they were mixing up the narrative structure, and I was just like, did I like click on the wrong show at first? but the way they had resolved that with the Deep and with these interviews and stuff, it was, you know, he really wanted the one lady who just basically would satisfy all his hedonistic desires, but Carol the counselor was like, no, that's you know, that's not who's good for you.
Right. Or not the one who's going to get you back on the 7.
Back on the 7.
Keep you off of the 7.
Yeah.
And it just, yeah, I don't really know where this whole thing is going with the Deep, but he's clearly still around. He's still on the team. Granted, everybody also in this episode of the 7, hey, your time may be up because Homelander is pissed off. And so you're all fired.
Yeah. Yeah. Homelander was pulling the Donald Trump and The Apprentice this episode.
He is grasping at straws. He got a doppelganger.
Oh, that's God, where to begin with that one?
Well, I don't even know how disturbing. Like, just when you think the milk situation could not get any worse.
Yeah.
This episode happens.
Yeah. So they instead of heads exploding, we get Homelander hooking up with a doppelganger or a shapeshifter, and because I was like, whenever Elizabeth Shue showed up, whenever Madeline showed up, I was just like, okay, yeah, I was like, okay, I was like, is this a flashback or is this a doppelganger? Yeah.
Right. It was done. The setup was done so well.
Yeah.
And yes, it was hilarious when he couldn't hold the form, and so he transfers back into Doppelganger, who's a he.
Yep.
And Homelander was like, "I will kill you if you do not change." But I still don't get how Doppelganger can immediately go back to what he was doing after he break. Yeah, I
Yeah, he
can't
broke
understand
character.
that.
Yeah. Yeah,
And then
that
they
was
have that, but then the ending is a little bit even more disturbing.
yeah.
I don't. Oh, Will.
Yeah, it was I was like a this was it was for me I enjoyed this episode because it wasn't it was as effed up as it was enough of a change of pace from what we just saw in episode 3 and the whale and and Stormfront, killing all these people and heads exploding and all that kind of stuff. And then we go to with Homelander and having these having sex with the shapeshifter and the whole milk feeding him with that. And it's just like one of those things where it's like once I see it, it creeped me out more than the deep skills. I mean,
Wow,
uh,
that's saying a lot for you.
yeah. Well, I
It's
mean, just not so much that I guess how manipulative. More so about the thing. To me, it wasn't so much the sex with the doppelganger. It was more just how messed up Homelander is as an individual, and
yeah,
which was creepy and like disgusting because he how he and his self like love was um just so like I'm trying to find the word for it. It was just so just disgusting. Uh, how he treated this individual. And, because it's basically like a race to the bottom between Homelander and Stormfront as far as who's the worst. And just when you think Stormfront may have topped him, Homelander will do something to like just remind you how this despicable and disgusting character he is.
yeah. I I think they're really trying to navigate a balancing act between those two characters because they have to keep it. They're trying to keep it as even as possible as we progress this season in terms of how despicable they are. And on that note, um, what I think is more interesting is if you don't just compare what we learn about Stormfront with what I guess we continue to learn about Homelander.
Yeah,
This isn't a new concept. He's a horrible person, but
yeah,
we went to some new depths,
yeah,
okay, with
yeah.
this episode. And but if you add in Butcher,
Mhm.
because while all of this sex is happening and all of this grotesqueness is happening, we also have Butcher and Becca finally reunite.
Yeah,
And it's exactly that reunion that you would expect from two adults. Emphasis on adults. They reunite for one night and they make plans, figure a way out. They're going to get their lives back. This will just be a memory. They can do this. And then she goes home. And she realizes they will never be able to go back to that state that
right.
they were in as a couple. There is no turning back. When she decided not to go to him after finding out she was pregnant, that was it. That was the end of it.
Mhm.
And so the heartbreak, that whole play out, I was is beautiful, and it's really it it kind of in a way it reminds you, or what it also does is Becca's one of the few people from the cast who knew Butcher before everything happened.
Mhm.
And she's like, "No, I never saved you. You were always on the brink."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. He fulfilled his mission for these last few episodes. It's been, I'm going to sacrifice all of my allies to
Yep.
get to my girl, to bring back my missus, to save her. He finds her. She says no because you can never love my son.
Right. Yeah. And that scene with Ryan, how he describes Ryan and talks about him and how Becca, even though Ryan was conceived out of an act of violence, she still is still very protective of him because it is her son,
Yeah.
and she realizes that if Ryan stays with Homelander, uh, it, then is the ramifications of that are, we'll have another type of Homelander or worse,
Right.
because as we've established how effed up Homelander is. So I mean that was just another level of like this like heartbreak for both of them, both Becca and Butcher, because of this act that happened. Um, it's again another reminder why they can't go back to what they had before, and but also Becca realizes too that uh, Butcher could not be a father to Ryan because there's just too much history there and too much there that Butcher wouldn't be able to get past to be able to serve that role for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that um I think I would have been mad at the writers had they stretched out leading of the build up to this scene for
Mm-hmm.
the entire season,
Mm-hmm.
because we kind of had that the first season.
Yeah, we did.
But then again, it turned into also a mystery because she appears at the end of the season.
Right.
So I'm glad that they kind of got it over with, so that now Butcher's motivation I is going to change, and what that becomes, and maybe if that continues to push him further down this path, or maybe he's able to find a new drive that allows him to make better choices. I don't know. But Becca is also going to be, did I just give up my one chance to get out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because she needs to get out.
she does.
Homelander is not going anywhere.
Nope, he's not. He's not.
And everyone knows, if you're in a room with Homelander, the chances of you dying very high, very
Very.
very high, very high.
especially when Homelander finds out you're in a relationship with someone else.
Yeah, just a little bit. The Maeve Homelander dynamic continue.
Yeah. Oh boy.
it's see, what confuses me, Will, is we go from him clearly having a weird sexual whatever relationship with Madeline
Mhm.
and the ghost of Madeline, to then getting mad at Maeve because she moved on from
Mhm.
him.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
understand, man.
And then yeah, he moves on and then like outs her on a show.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and that's not his choice to tell. But again, just as we were talking about earlier, how each with each member of the seven, he sent the deep away. He fires A Train and brings in Shockwave, who was A Train's rival from season one with their big race. I'm sure we'll talk about Starlight in the elevator with Hugh, with not killing Huey and stuff. But this particular one is one that just really just stood out to me, and I guess too for a couple of reasons. One, I have been watching uh, Away, and they had a similar, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this show, there's another similar type of situation
Mm-hmm.
where someone has been involuntarily outed. But but this is the thing that for me, like, as we go in the back and forth between who's worse, Homelander or Stormfront, this is one of those. This is the one that, like, again, tips the scale a little bit. I don't know if it's a tip in the scale because they're both equally bad, but this one just really, of all the things that happened in this episode, this is the one that stood out for me as far as just how nasty and evil and just bad what he did to her.
Because it's also a different tactic. I mean, it's not as if he went around firing every single member of the Seven,
Right.
but he uses very different tactics with each of them. Talking about A-Train.
Yep.
A-Train was not surprising to me in the slightest because
exactly,
they've kind of been hinting at it with all of his the scenes of him losing his breath,
right.
not being able to run. So there is something wearing him down. I don't know. And it's his heart. And of course Homelander is going to pick up on that. He hears everything. So and he sees everything. So that one didn't catch me off guard.
Me neither.
But this one, he doesn't even hurt her. It's an outing, so it's more about her identity.
Yeah.
And not even her identity as a superhero, but her identity as a person in general. And so that, again, this is why we need a full flashback episode, because I really need to understand this dynamic, because she also still, there's something about her reaction where she's hurt. But there's still this, I'm more shocked and hurt because it came from you. And so there's a level of trust that I still need to understand, and I need to understand their full story.
Yeah, I agree.
Speaking about full stories, Liberty.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is one of the reasons why I didn't like this episode as much as others. I don't like it when we have an entire cross-country road trip to get there and figure it out. And then that's the episode.
Yeah.
I mean, it was fun and games to see Huey and Starlight finally be able to act normal, and poor Mother's Milk got a front row seat to everything.
He did.
Poor Mother, but granted, this arc really did help his story because we learned more about him and his father and his father's connections to with Vought. So I like that aspect of it. But they're on a road trip to find Liberty, an older superhero, and they come across this woman who tells a story, which I swear the images from that whole flashback felt like it was ripped right out of Watchmen.
It did.
So much.
It did.
And she's freaked out because she's a little girl. She witnesses her brother being pulled over by Liberty, beaten to death. Again, that image alongside what Stormfront did to Kamiko's brother will haunt me for a while.
Yeah.
And she's freaking out in present day because she doesn't want the lady to come back. Well, Liberty's dead, right? Well, no. Stormfront is Liberty. Liberty is Stormfront. How? We don't know.
Well, I guess Compound V slows your aging.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It does something. And
So
yeah.
so
I don't know how I feel about that revelation. I kind of wish that Stormfront was more of a descendant. But we'll see what happens. I think the more fascinating scene though was when Homelander confronts Stormfront,
Hmm.
and she kind of comes on to him.
I was just going to say, it was like that scene to me when I was watching it. I was like, either they're about to rip each other's heads off, or they're about to rip each other's clothes off, because I was getting all kinds of both vibes from both of them.
See, I did not get any. I thought his reaction to her was hilarious because he was like, why are you touching me? I am so uncomfortable. he, he was, he was me whenever I watch the doppelganger scenes. I'm so uncomfortable right now. Stop doing it. Leave me alone. And I still don't really understand her tactic and what she wants because I I I almost think that she knows she can defeat him, but she needs him for something, and I don't know what that is.
Yeah, maybe it's like, you know, not to bring in another uh, characters from another thing, but it's like Batman and Joker. I mean, they need each other. I mean, if one's gone away, it's then what's their purpose?
But Homelander's a villain too.
Yeah, he's a villain too, but I guess
I
my
mean,
point, I
I
guess,
guess you would get that dynamic if Butcher and Homelander.
yeah,
No.
yeah, I guess you could get that dynamic from them, but I don't know. I mean, I mean, I think she thinks she could probably take out Homelander, and she probably could do so, but for whatever reason, yeah, like you said, there's something that she needs from him. Maybe it is to to continue her rise as influencer, and and this new public persona of being the new hero, and 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 being the
Hashtag.
savior.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hashtag heroes so white.
yep, exactly.
I love that. I love that was so funny.
That was,
Oh man,
yeah,
that's beautiful.
yeah. That was definitely. This show is just like I mean, I know it was a different change of pace and was more character driven, but I really liked this episode. I thought it was just the right. I thought it was the right thing to come right after episode 3.
Maybe the more I talk to it, the more I recall the highlights, and so I guess it looking back now that I remember everything that happened because it was a bit foggy there for a while. I wanted to burn the doppelganger images from my mind.
Oh,
Forgive me.
yeah,
But but yeah, I think you're right that overall it was a pretty sound episode. I guess I just appreciate the boss fights more, but give me a good hashtag and it'll
yeah.
s- a lot of fun.
Hashtag hero so white. I'm putting that on the. I'm putting that on the show. We should put that
Yes,
on the show description for the week. I mean, that's
yeah.
just like,
Oh my god, I love that one.
yeah.
Um, S- Starlight and Huey, thoughts?
Um, like, uh, their usual awkwardness. I I think that the thread between the other through line through the episode was, no one, everyone hates Almond Joys, especially Black Noir, because he kicked it through the the Almond Joy, from the tech there when he was trying to
Yeah,
search for Butcher,
right.
um,
Which
and
I'm glad they're utilizing him more this
yeah,
season.
yeah, they are. I like the way they're using him. I mean,
Hmm.
I mean, I was cracking up at the way that dynamic with him there and with the analyst, um, whenever they're back and forth banter, even though the way that the silence and her reactions and how they played off one another was that was just a super funny moment in the episode for me. And then as far as Huey and Starlight, I they're I'm kind of tired of them.
Yeah.
I mean, Huey, yeah, we get the awkwardness, the whole, but the whenever they get back into the city, and you know, he has the awkward moment with the almond joy line and stuff. But um, he- I felt like mother's milk in the car whenever when I see them sometimes. Uh,
Yeah, it's hard because this episode had such an impactful moment between Butcher and Becca that it's hard to then go into this relationship without all that history.
yeah,
Um, who are both also it's a very complicated relationship,
it is.
but it's new, it's young love, and I think they were toying with that a lot. And what's more interesting is not it's not them both as like Annie and Huey off together in the world. That's not interesting. It's more interesting as Starlight and Huey. And that's
That's
what we didn't get
Yep.
this episode.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, I think the road trip, it provided, again, greater depth for opportunities to explore Mother's Milk, and and um, how his OCD um, sort of helped drives him. And it's funny, interestingly enough, I guess the actor who plays Mother's Milk also uh, noted how he actually is OCD in real life. So it was fun. It's a good extension for him to portray that in the show. But when they were in a donut shop, and she and Mother's Milk having their back and forth, and learning their backgrounds about, a little bit more about her father, and and what to expect, and it was. I like those aspects of it. But you're right. I mean, Huey and Starlight are, whenever they are having to deal with the uncomfortable, the unrequited relationship, is more interested than whenever things are going well for them.
It's really hard to pay attention, Will, when you say things referring to an episode of The Boys, when you say things like exploring new depths of Mother's Milk. All I
Oh
think
God.
about are 20 scenes with Homelander and Mother's.
Oh, my bad.
But you're right. This show
Yeah,
does explore new depths of
yeah,
Mother's.
it does. It
A
does.
whole
In
family.
more ways than one.
I still don't get how they let that character have that name, knowing
Yeah,
Homeland's weird obsession. I don't
yeah,
get it. Hashtag heroes so white. Uh,
yeah.
oh man. All right. Well, I think that is it for us, everyone. Will, why don't you
Yeah.
tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can. You can find me at Will M Polk at WILLMPOLK.
You can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at CNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, but most importantly, rate, subscribe, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.